The book was a sensation, which really surprised me, because I had done very little to promote it. But, a few people that went to high school with Morgan and I got wind of it, and so, a few thousand copies got sold that way. Then it spread, and before you knew it, the local news picked up on the story, and then that spread around the world. Disabled poet writes book in honor of her friend. Of course, I kept telling the newspapers that the term is poetess, but they didn't care. Journalism does not often attract artists of the written word. I also didn't like being called disabled, as I didn't see myself that way at all. I met the President of the United States and brought Mara, who had since gotten married and had 3 beautiful children, and also my mom and dad along. Later, at a special dinner, was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. Since I was not quite 24 yet, I, at 23, became the youngest poetess or poet to ever win that prize. It was quite an honor, but the publicity was overwhelming. And, since I had self-published, I made a lot more money with this successful book than if I would have with a conventional publishing house. The rights to the book were all mine, and I was very proud of that. About 16 months after all the buzz about my book had finally died down, I started to feel very tired a lot, and learned I had a terrible infection in the back of my left leg that I had not noticed. I had been so busy with my book and the hoopla surrounding it that I just hadn't been paying attention. I was given antibiotics and had to have my dressing changed twice a day. I still wrote though, and one day, I heard my mother open the door and come in. She shut the door, and since it was hard for me to move, she spoke to my back. I guess she had become used to that over the years. I smiled at how patient she was. Kavindra, I know I haven't talked to you much since your accident. I just haven't known what to say. I heard sobbing behind me and my heart began to break. I wanted to go to her, but it would be a half-hour process just getting up from my desk. So, I listened intently, instead. My little girl, you were so quiet and shy. You had a lisp which you overcame, and once you did, oh. I had never seen anyone change so much. You began speaking all the time. She chuckled and it made me smile, thinking of reading all those license plates. Your father and I were so amazed at your progress and watched with such pride as you climbed higher than anyone else in your school. When it came to English, you were unstoppable. You won the state championship for the spelling bee. I glanced over at the trophy. It was getting dusty and needed a polishing. My teenage daughter, you turned into a lovely young adult, always writing such beautiful poetry and wow-ings all with your knowledge of the world. I have yet to know of any other child that read encyclopedias while growing up. And, when you were 19, you and your friend Morgan took off on an adventure. Neither your father nor I ever thought that anything so tragic would happen. When we worried about letting you go on that trip, our friends said we were being overprotective. I could hear her starting to cry harder, so I began my arduous journey from my desk to get up and give her a hug. And now well, I just don't know. I feel so guilty for not being overprotective, you know? But, what could I do? I was trying to let you have your freedom, and to explore life in a way that I was never able to. When I heard of that wreck, that awful, terrible wreck, Kavindra, I just sort of shut down inside. Her crying had turned into near wailing and I heard her sit down heavily on my bed. She was grabbing Kleenex from the tissue box on the nightstand and blowing her nose repeatedly. I tried to speed up my operation for getting to her, my heart aching. I didn't want my mother to feel at fault. As I struggled to get up, I said, "Mother, it isn't your fault. I have come to understand that life is not easily understood. Events we go through are like random words just milling around us, and until someone snatches a few words out of the air and uses them to make some sense of our lives, we live in confusion. The events of the day of that crash are like that. I have asked myself repeatedly what it was all about. You see, there's something that you don't know. That day I had a vision of a circle in the grass, and when I look back on it, I am not even so sure it was a vision. I think it really happened. And then, I think, that's crazy, it had to be an illusion, but then I realize that I can't find very much difference between illusion and reality in life anyways. And, the few differences I do find disappear from a broader perspective. But, that vision was an induction ceremony of some kind. I can't fully explain it, but after that, I knew I was bound to a society of poets and poetesses that goes back to a time beyond time, little chemicals that would someday become a human being, just were long ago floating in space, attaching themselves to meteors and such, and in their strange way, by doing so they were making sense of events, documenting their lives. Can you see this? I know this now. Every feature of us, and our world, is a poem. Every idea is a poem and every non-idea too. My mother had her head in her hands, but her crying had lessened somewhat, so I went on, a bit manic now. And so, Morgan died on that day, and I was severely injured. Why? I don't know why except to say that if I had to pluck a few words from the air to explain it, they'd be like a Van Gogh painting, or maybe a Jackson Pollock, or Picasso. They'd be like a Rodin statue, or a Man Ray photograph. Or, they'd look like one of my many poems in my book, Talking for Morgan, which mixed the beauty of the gift of knowing her with the tragedy of her being gone. Life is a mixture, Mom, it isn't just tragic or just great. There are no facts, no realities, no illusions, and nothing permanent. Life must be in a constant state of change for growth to happen. But growth doesn't necessarily mean anything good or positive. Sometimes, we grow in directions that others might say aren't best suited for us. But, how do we know what is best when terms like that are so arbitrary? We just need to be in a state of change, and not get stagnant with our lives. Now, I know I can't bring my leg back, and I can't stop all this physical and emotional pain I am constantly feeling, and, most important of all, I cannot bring Morgan back. So, I did the best thing I could do, Mom. I wrote a book so she would be forever remembered as the loving friend she was. I took my gift and plucked a few words from the air, and described, as best as I could, what it was like to be her friend. She was the greatest, and now, a big portion of the world knows that too. It was the best I could do. And Mom, you have to realize that you did the best you could do too. What's done is finite, but what is finite, is not the end. It's like the universe, which is scientifically finite and infinite at the same time. Now it is the time to pick yourself up, use the gifts you have, and do the things that are nagging on your heart for you to get up and do. It's there in the silence of your being, Mom, there's a circle in the center of you, and it needs you to see that it, like you, is already complete. So, align your thoughts with it, and don't be afraid of a life that is going to be in change anyway. My mother nodded, and took an unfamiliar photograph of me off the nightstand, and kissed it. She stood up, but before I could hug her she went to the door. She paused there and said, "Thank you, Kavindra," and then she left. I went over to the bed and sat down, exhausted. I looked at the picture on the nightstand, surprised I hadn't noticed it before. It was a picture of me shaking the president's hand, and the frame had a golden engraving at the bottom that read, Kavindra Sharma, 1968 to 1992, beloved daughter the poetess. And that was the first moment when I realized I was dead.